Welcome back to My Kitchen, My Rules. Today we're going to make Spam. Now, I love this homemade recipe, but I can't claim it as my own. This comes from Wolf Pit. I'm going to start with 4 to 5 pounds of a pork shoulder roast cut into 1 to 2 inch pieces and about 1 pound to 2 pounds of ham shank. Once everything is cut up, put it in the freezer on a cookie sheet for about 45 minutes. Don't forget to save the bones, you can use them for stock. First, we're going to start with 3 tablespoons of quick tender. Next is going to be 3 tablespoons of sugar. Next will be 1 tablespoon of salt and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. Add 1 cup of cold water and mix that into a slurry while we're waiting the 45 minutes for our meat to chill. After the meat has chilled, run it through a meat grinder on a medium setting. I run my ham through first, and when I'm done with that, I move on to the pork shoulder. The grinder I'm using is attached to my KitchenAid mixer. When I cut up all my meat, I did not remove any of the fat. I leave the fat intact because it gives the meat a rich flavor and also that loaf that you come to expect from Spam. This is what it looks like after it's been run through the grinder one time. You can see that it's kind of crumbly, and if you leave it like this, your Spam will be crumbly too. I run it through a second time using a finer grinder, and this is what you end up with. It's much more tender. Next, I add all of my meat to the slurry. Now you can use gloves if you want to, but this is just not how I work in my kitchen. I just wash my hands every time I'm doing something. Besides, look at those giant spoons at the bottom of your arms. They're perfect. After a lot of trial and error, this is the easiest way I found to get the Spam into the jar without making a huge mess. It's just a piping bag and it does take a little bit of finesse. When I'm done, leaving 1 inch headspace, I pat down the meat to remove any excess air bubbles. Because I've packed it down, I have a little extra headspace. I add a little extra meat until I get to the 1 inch headspace and pack it down again. Now that I have the correct headspace, I flatten out the tops until they look like this. Next, I found another trick that works for me. Take a wooden spoon and press it down the middle of the jar. This is going to allow for even heating throughout the jar. Next, I wipe all of the rims with white vinegar. This helps give me a nice seal. Add your flats to all of your jars and then add all of your rings. After I have all the rings on finger tight, I'm going to process these in a Presto 23-quart pressure canner. In my pressure canner is 3 quarts of water and also a little bit of vinegar to help with any water residue. This recipe made 7 pints. After adding all of my jars to my canner, I lock the lid and I turn on the heat. I'm going to vent the steam from the vent pipe for 10 minutes. After venting for 10 minutes, I add a 10-pound weight. Check your elevation charts. Bring the canner up to 10 pounds of pressure and set a timer for 75 minutes. After 75 minutes, let it depressurize on its own and then remove the jars and let sit for 24 hours. Congratulations, you've made homemade Spam, and this is going to be so good, I promise. We like this better than the store-bought kind. Music to my ears. That hole we made in the Spam earlier will shrink as it cooks, so it's not very noticeable at all. Also, it should slide easily out of your jar. There's many different uses for Spam, but this is definitely our favorite recipe and my favorite way to make it. This is shelf stable for 1 to 3 years, and I'm going to make it this morning for breakfast. First, I'm going to start by making my biscuits, and if you've never been to my blog before, I put the link into the comment section of this video. All of my recipes are there, including my canning recipes. Next, I move over to the stove, and I take 1 teaspoon of bacon fat, and I let that melt down to heat the Spam. I also add a couple of eggs because I'm going to build some biscuit sandwiches. I reheat the Spam thoroughly until it's golden brown on both sides. Next, I layer my biscuits with Spam, my over easy eggs, and some green onions. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe. I hope you enjoy this Spam as much as we do.